Welcome back! Very recently, my good friend and amazing musician, Chris CANON, came to me to do some marketing for his upcoming album. And somehow we got on the topic of music videos. 2 hours after that, we had planned out what I think will be the coolest music video I've ever seen. It'll also be the first music video that I ever get to shoot as a filmmaker, and I'm super excited about it. So while the concept is top secret, that will be coming soon. I will be talking a lot about this video in the coming months, but a few cool opportunities come with the plan to shoot that music video, including the opportunity to rent and get a look at some really awesome gear. And in this video, I'm going to be unboxing and telling you why I've rented the Panasonic GH5s. Let's roll that intro and get into it. Now, since the beginning of this YouTube channel in January of 2019, I've been shooting all of our videos on this Panasonic GH5. It is a fantastic camera, and it still pretty much kills the entire game when it comes to $1,000 to $2,000 mirrorless cameras. If you're a video shooter and you're in that budget range, I really can't recommend anything over the Panasonic GH5. The only thing I would reach for over the GH5 right now is the SONY a7 III mirrorless camera, and that's if I need to shoot in low light conditions. Sony's pretty much cornered the entire market when it comes to low light performance. I don't shoot a whole lot of low light stuff, but since we're gonna be shooting this upcoming music video using natural sunlight, I can't really rely on the sun to do exactly what I want it to. So I needed a low light camera, but instead of reaching for the Sony a7 III, with its better low light and presumably better autofocus, a lot of people out there complain about the GH5's autofocus. I don't think it's that big of an issue, but if I wanted all that, I could reach for the Sony a7 III, but I would have a lot of trouble matching shots between the GH5 and the Sony a7 III. And the GH5 system is a micro four thirds sensor, as I went over in this video. If I wanted to use the Sony a7 III, I only have one lens that would fit on it, which I would need to buy an adapter for. So as an alternative to switching up all my lenses and really being limited in terms of looks for this music video shoot, I just went with the Panasonic DC GH5s. It is like the Panasonic GH5 in almost every way, except this thing is noted for having considerably better low light performance. So let's unbox this thing and talk about the difference between this and the GH5. The GH5 has a 20 megapixel live MOS sensor, whereas this has a 10.2 megapixel multi-aspect ratio sensor. Now, the sensors are pretty much the same size, which means that given that this thing has less megapixels, it actually has larger pixels. And the larger your pixels are, the better they are at sensing light. By packing less pixels onto the same sensor, you're getting more room to sense light and also fit some other things that are helpful for video shooters. Ooh, here it is, guys. The Panasonic GH5s. I'm gonna put that right there. Let's see what else we got in this box. We've got a strap, we've got a connector cable, USB to USB-C, then we've got a USB to micro USB cable, we've got a battery charger, we've got a little power brick to plug the battery charger into, and a battery. Now, because this thing has less pixels on the same sensor size, it can fit a little bit more technology on those pixels. Every single pixel that gets put onto a camera sensor is tuned to a certain sensitivity of light. And this is represented as ISO, or native ISO. The native ISO of your sensor is how the pixels are tuned natively without boosting the gain on the camera or turning up the electrical signal to simulate more light. So when you make the sensor, you're baking in the native ISO, how sensitive it is to light without doing anything. But this camera has dual ISO, so there's two native ISO settings on the pixels of this sensor. From 400 all the way up to 2500, I'm just boosting the gain. I'm increasing the electrical signal to emulate what more light would be like. But when I hit 2500, I'm back at a native ISO, so I don't have all the noise and the just shitty shitty artifacts that make boosting your gain such a hassle. So this GH5 performs from 200 ISO all the way up to 12,800. But the native ISO, what it looks best with, is 400. And if I crank it up, I'm boosting the gain on the electrical signal. I'm gonna introduce noise, I'm gonna introduce artifacts. It's just generally not gonna look good. This GH5s goes from 160 all the way up to 51,200. And every setting on the way up looks all the better because of the dual native ISO. Now, admittedly, the Sony a7 III and soon the a7S III just have better low light. Sony is the king of low light. They've somehow figured out how to like take a completely dark room and make it look like a broad daylight picture. But I don't need that. I really don't. Like, usually there's some light source somewhere out and about, and as long as you've got a camera that's just a little bit more sensitive to light, you should be good to go. But the differences don't stop with low light. This thing is also fine-tuned for video. But this thing can also shoot up to 240 frames per second, which means that I can get a 10 times slowdown if I want to do slow-mo footage. Since everything I make is in 24 frames per second, if I shoot at 240 and then slow it down to 24, I'm dividing the speed by 10, which is super slow. Here's what it looks like. This thing will also shoot in Cinema 4K at 60 frames per second. So I can get super slow motion with ultra high resolution, which is pretty tight. Like, are these features worth a whole bunch more money? No, they're not, but I like it. And lastly, the main difference between this and the GH5 is that the sensor is just a little bit bigger. You'll see the larger sensor when I pop this lens onto this camera and switch out the cameras. So let's do that now. All right, so now I am shooting on the GH5s. Generally, I should have better color accuracy because of how this sensor is made. It's made for video, so my color accuracy is gonna be better because of the larger pixel size. But also, I should have a wider field of view. You can kind of see the corner of my laptop here now where you couldn't before. More room to work with, which is exactly what I need for this particular video. So how do they fit all of the increased specs into the same exact body? How do they do it? Well, they have to make a few sacrifices. Right now, you're looking at the sensor of the GH5 and you can kind of see it's a little bit wobbly, like I can hear it. Now watch what happens when I turn it on. You see how that sensor just stiffens right up? It's not wobbly anymore. That's because there's a gimbal in this camera. So every time the sensor moves a little bit, it counteracts the motion with the motors in the gimbal. This is called in-body image stabilization. Because of the mechanics that are inside this camera body, I really can't get an unstable image. I can't get the shaky footage you see out of most Canon and Sony users' videos. And when you pair this GH5 with a native Panasonic Lumix lens that has in-lens stabilization, you get dual native stabilization, which is like gimbal buttery smooth footage while you're shooting handheld, which is incredibly useful for music video shoots. Which is why I want to have both of these cameras on deck when I go to shoot this pretty audacious music video. Because of the very creative nature of the video itself, I need very high bit rates. Both of these cameras, unlike the Sony a7 III or any Canon mirrorless camera that you can get, shoot 422 10-bit internal footage, which is a really high bit rate. It means I can mess with the colors in post when I'm editing the video, and I'm not gonna get random aberrations and weird color noise and stuff like that. The files are high bit rates. There's a lot of room to push the colors and the luminance around, get it looking how I want it. Now 422 references how the camera's internal componentry squishes down or downsamples the color space that it's shooting in. Now I probably just mangled that description, and one of my favorite channels, Gerald Undone, already did a great description of what this actually means. So I'm just gonna put that there, and I don't have to sound like an idiot in front of you. This thing shoots that 422 10-bit internal. It also shoots 400 megabit per second all I, 4K. All I just means that it's giving you the full information from every single frame. Whereas most cameras, like the Sony a7 III, don't have that capability. You would need an external recorder to get all the frame information. In the body of this camera, I'm storing every single frame, all the info from it, whereas with an A7 III, you're gonna store that initial frame, which I believe is what I stands for in all I, and then it's just going to record the difference between that frame and the next frame for like 3 or 4 frames. This is called a long GOP codec. It's basically estimating what the frame's gonna look like by just storing the data about the differences between frames. And then every 4 or 5 frames, it takes a new iframe and starts the process back over. This saves a lot of space on your SD cards and on your computer, but it's not great for pushing around the image how you want to, which is why I love having 2 cameras with all I internal recording for this music video shoot. Okay, so you know about these cameras, you know the differences between them, you know they're micro four thirds, they don't fit full frame lenses without an adapter, but they have all the advantages of micro four thirds by being able to just pack so many features into the body and great internal recording bit rates. But it's 2019. Both these cameras are about a year old now, and they're not going to be the top of Panasonic's micro four thirds line for much longer. So, should you still buy one of these? Yes. Unequivocally, yes. These cameras are sharp, they are capable, they shoot really high internal bit rates, they have tons of features, far better autofocus than anyone out there on YouTube is indicating that they have, and they're cheaper. The lenses are cheaper, the cameras are cheaper for what you're getting. It's just all around a better deal than buying a full frame Sony or Canon camera right now. Am I gonna ever shoot on Canon or Sony? Yeah, hell yeah. But I just can't justify spending $2 grand on an A7 III when that A7S III is right around the corner and it's more tuned to video shooters like myself. So in the meantime, I'm going in heavy on the micro four thirds system on Panasonic's micro four thirds line. Because Panasonic knows what they're doing. They know to use all that extra space you save with the micro four thirds system to pack in as much features as possible. And that's just why I love the GH5 line. So if you're thinking about becoming a video shooter, or if you're an artist and you want to shoot your own videos or music videos or ads for your artwork, whatever you need video for, I recommend investing on the micro four thirds system. I think it's gonna be around for a lot longer than people are indicating it will, and it will suit your needs. So with that said, I've been Circa for Full Stack Creative. This has been the GH5 and the GH5s Lumix by Panasonic. If this video was helpful to you in any way, please consider liking and subscribing. We drop new tutorials, gear reviews, and all types of stuff for running a creative business here on this channel 3 times a week. We also give away tons of training and audio and video gear and gift cards to your favorite e-tailers for those purposes. So you can't really go wrong with subscribing to Full Stack Creative, in my opinion. If you've already got a GH5 or a GH5s or any other micro four thirds camera and you love it, let me know in the comments below. And if you have a full frame or an aps-c camera that's not by Panasonic and you'd like to sound off about why you think I might be a little bit misguided here, let me know in the comments below too. I'll make sure to continue the conversation. I'll see all of you in the next video. Peace out.